Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves and enjoy a little chocolate. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. Boy, I tell you, it has been a hot minute since I have had a solo episode. This is dropping on April 4th, and I do believe that has been since the end of January, on January 31st, when I did the last solo episode. So it is fun to get back on here. Of course, I have had some pretty amazing interviews that I know you guys have really enjoyed, and so I've been just dropping those as much as possible or as quickly as possible. I wanted to come on today and talk some about community. Now, if this sounds familiar, if you are a longtime listener, then you may have heard my conversation with Kyle Wood. Kyle is host of the Lead Your Tribe podcast, and he is also owner of Bootcraft, which is really helpful to trainers like me. So he has been somewhat of a mentor to me, and he came on back in September of 2020, which was season 6, episode 5, called Miss Your People, the Power of a Fitness Community. So this is a different conversation or a different topic. I mean, it's the same topic, but it's just different than when I had Kyle on because number one, it's just me. What I wanted to do is just kind of take a step back. As this is dropping, it has been basically 3 years since COVID and the pandemic hit, and a lot has changed. So I kind of wanted to just give you a little look into my own world, and talk about some of the things, how things have changed for me really since the pandemic. And then talk some about community, and then talk about how I have changed my community, what I am doing to fill that connectedness need that I have, and then give you a little bit of guidance on how to create your community. And I do have kind of a special announcement, so make sure that you hang with me if you're like, Amy, I go to the gym. I'm there all the time, and those are my people, and I love them, and I'm so thrilled for you if that is the case. But stick with me because I want you to hear this announcement that I have. So let's kind of start where I had at the beginning, which is how things have changed for me since the pandemic. So pre-pandemic, I taught a group fitness. It wasn't really a class. I didn't like to call it boot camp because I was like, that word can kind of scare people off, but it was a group of women who would get together and we would exercise. So whatever it is that you want to call that. And those women were my people. I adored them. I still do. I still keep in contact with many of them. But when COVID hit, I obviously had to back off. Now Texas kind of opened up. And since it was an outdoor class, I was able to kind of pull that back some during that summer. But then at the same time, I was writing my book and I knew that I needed more time. I had a lot of things, but I did not have time. And so I pressed pause on that. And then for reasons I'll kind of get into here in a second, that I just never put that back together. So I don't have those group fitness classes anymore. I had a weekly walking partner for years. In fact, I thought it was just a few years. And then I realized, we started walking when my current 11th grader was in 5th grade. And she moved right before the beginning of this year. So it was probably about 5 years that we walked once a week. And that was a really sacred space and time for me. And even though it was just one other person, it was a regular time that I knew that number one, I could move, and number two, I could process things with her. And then the other thing that has happened with me is increasingly, I am spending my time doing this. And that is just being online. That is putting myself out there through your ears, putting myself out there through social media, through my Facebook group, and really investing in the time it takes to serve others in an online capacity. So if you are following me over on Instagram, or again, if you're on the Graced Health Community Facebook group, I'm now doing stuff on YouTube. So I'm really just kind of serving others in an online capacity. But guess what that means? It means I'm not with people. I'm not actually physically with people. And I have to be honest, this gig, this online thing, whatever you want to call it that I do, it can be very lonely. And I felt kind of alone in that. I felt alone in that feeling until I was listening to a podcast called Buzzcast. This is going to get really meta. So Buzzcast is Buzz Sprout's podcast. Buzzsprout is my podcast hosting provider. So it's the people who distribute this show to all of the different platforms and Apple and Spotify and Google Podcasts and all of that. They have a podcast and they were talking about, okay, bear with me here. They were talking about another person who was a really big podcaster. I can't remember their name. And they were saying how lonely it was. And then the hosts were like, it was so good for me to hear that because this is so lonely. And I'm sitting there working out, listening to them going, yes, it is. So it's not just me. It's not just me. It just can be kind of lonely. I guess it was back in October, really, when I was able to put my finger on it and realize that what I felt like I was missing was connectedness. And I did this and I gained this after having a weekend leadership workshop, goodness, not workout. Not everything that begins with work ends in out, Amy. It's workshop, a leadership workshop with my sorority, Chi Omega, which I was involved in as a collegiate and am still involved in. But I really walked away from that hands-on workshop realizing that connectedness and community was what I felt was missing in my life. And that is something that is just very valuable to me. And my communities have changed. Not only did that group fitness community change, also, my Bible study has changed from other women in my life stage to now I lead young adults through my church and I love them and adore them. It's just a little different. My circle of friends has changed and I do take a lot of responsibility for that. A lot of because my time now is more and more focused again, doing this, which again is a bit lonely. So it's just different. My circle of friends has changed. My life stage has changed. I have friends who have kids my age and their kids are graduating and they're moving and they're changing. It's just different. So all of this to say is my community has changed. And I'm wondering if yours has too. Now, maybe not exactly in that same way, but how has your life stage changed? How has your job status changed or your friendships? Maybe those are different. Maybe your faith community is different. Maybe your relationship status has changed. And all of a sudden, the friends that you and your partner had are now they're divided as well. And so there's a lot of things going on in our life right now that maybe has altered our community. Now, I believe that whether you are or you consider yourself to be a people person or a social butterfly or however you want to define that or not, we are all meant for community at some level or another. Some of us like to have a lot of community and a lot of people around us all the time, every day. And some people need very small amounts of it. I have children who one is in one category and one is the other. And one of my kids say, Mom, I just have a very low social battery and it depletes very quickly. And that's fine. But he also recognizes the need to be around other people. And then the other thing too, that even though, yes, this is how I believe, and this is one of these things that I can feel and I can't exactly say why, but I just need to be around other people. I also have some pretty good word on it from scripture. I am no Bible scholar, but in my opinion, one of the greatest examples of community is in the book of Acts, where we see people gathering together after Jesus's resurrection, and particularly right after Pentecost. So, this is the deal. It wasn't super fancy, but they all just kind of gained encouragement by coming together. So as I was kind of doing a little bit of research for this in in Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. So hang with me real quickly. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread. By the way, that's eating. I know you all know that. And the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts. So 2 things on there. Number 1, these were just regular people coming together with other people who had some things in common with them, and they were trying to grow together. So this obviously was in the context of faith and Christianity and being a Jesus follower. But at the same time, I think we can take that and go, oh, it's important to be around other people who believe the same things that we do. The second thing that I did not intend to say through this, but I'm really glad to see, is Luke, who wrote the Acts of the Apostles, writes like I do. And what I mean by that is he started every sentence there with "and." I do too. And I have to go back and self-edit because I realize how many, I'm like, and this and that. Anyway, okay. Not to say that I'm as good a writer as Luke, but you get that. So anyway, this passage occurred right after Pentecost, like I said. So that's when the Holy Spirit appeared. And we don't see this in scripture, but I have to imagine having a community of other believers was so helpful for the apostles, for the people who experience this to process what happened, right? How many times have you gotten together with people and you're like, I just kind of need to work through this, or I need to talk about this, or there's an event or something like that. I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had in the middle of training sessions or when I used to hold classes where we just really processed some events, and some of them, I mean, like big ones, small ones, anything like that. So again, just the power of community is really powerful. It's, it's there. We are there for a reason. And Hebrews 10:24-25 says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So if I was writing this out, what I would do is bold and italicize, not neglecting to meet together and encouraging one another. I think these are both really important things to remember when we talk about our overall holistic wellness, which includes getting together with other people. So real quickly, I want to tell you some of the things that I have done to enhance my community and connectedness, in the hopes that if you too are missing this, or if you too have experienced some changes, you might be able to implement a version of or something like this. So one thing I have done, and this is just specific to me, is I created a creative mastermind. This has nothing to do with fitness, but it has everything to do with getting together with other people who I have things in common. And this is just something that I do once a month. It is with a few other, I just call them creatives in my neighborhood. So there are artists, there are other writers, there are graphic designers, and we just kind of come together, talk about what we're working on, what we're getting hung up on, what our goals are. And we meet for an hour. And I love it. It's so fun. It's invigorating to me to be able to pick apart something, not pick apart, but notice something that someone's working on and they're getting stuck on. I'm like, ooh, I've done that. And here's how I did that. And then they may have an idea for me. So it's just kind of a fun collaborative effort. Another thing I do that's a little more focused on fitness and wellness is I schedule walk and talks. If I remember correctly, I talked about this with Dave Paul recently. It was season 16, episode 8, called Create an All-Day Fitness Lifestyle Using Walking with Dave Paul. So he's the host of the Walking is Fitness podcast. But a walk and talk is literally just that. It is a scheduled time. I get together with a friend in person or on the phone, and we just know that this is going to be an opportunity to either catch up, to dig into something that is on our heart to provide encouragement, but it's very specific, like, hey, walk, we're going for a walk and talk. So I do this with my friends in my neighborhood. I've actually done this with some colleagues that I have met through this podcasting world, and that's been super fun. I have a friend that I met again at this Chi Omega thing, which we're, quote, both in Houston, but we live a solid hour away. So we will meet and walk and talk. And it's soul giving to me. So this is something that you can do as well. Maybe just reach out to a friend and say, hey, I've got some things I need to process or work through or get some guidance on. And can we go for a walk? So this can be someone that you meet or that you see often, or, maybe not so often, either way. Another thing that I have done is I have started teaching a class once a month at Reps. So you met Tug Cargbo back in season 15, and we talked about recovery and the importance of recovery. So I lead an in-person class at Tug's physical therapy center called Reps, REPS. And that's just on the first Thursday of every month. And that's an opportunity for me to get in front of people again. And the classes have been small, but meaningful. And I really enjoy that time doing that. And then the fourth thing I'm doing that you actually can have the opportunity to join me in is I am creating my own community. So beginning in April, we are going to start having something called Graced Health Plus here on the podcast. Now, this podcast will stay the same. Nothing is changing. Nothing is changing. But Graced Health Plus will offer you a few things, and you're going to hear more about that this Friday at the bonus episode. So I'm not going to fill you up with time talking about that. But one element of Graced Health Plus is a monthly Zoom live meetup. So each month we're going to get together over Zoom because we can't get together face to face. This is a benefit of technology. And we're just going to take one topic and discuss it as a community. So this is not me giving a lesson. This is not me talking to you. You hear enough of me as it is. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what's working, what's a challenge in relation to these one particular topics. So this is an opportunity to share what you know and to glean from others. Because let's be honest, if we can be honest, how wonderful is it when someone is struggling with something and you say, oh, I have had that too. And this is what worked for me. And you can see their eyes get really big and they're like their eyebrows raise up. They're like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. And so I'm really hoping that we can come together as a community to encourage each other, to help each other grow in finding our own balanced, sustainable health. So just like on the podcast, we will cover a variety of topics surrounding our physical, our mental, and our spiritual health. And we will do this with the focus of replicating some of the benefits that we have in person, like really, like literally in the same space, and taking that to an online space. Now, what do I mean by that? There was a great article I came across when I was preparing for this by Burn Bootcamp, which ironically, I have a girlfriend who did that and she loved it for a while. I mean, she loved it. I don't think she does it anymore. But they had 5 benefits to a group community fitness program. And they talked about support, motivation, accountability, energy, and inspiration. And so my hope is our time in these 1-hour meetups, and I will honor your time and we will keep it to 1 hour, is that we can support each other. We can provide motivation. We can offer accountability for those who want it. You may not want it, and that's okay. I think, we can also have maybe some inspiration of, again, sharing the things. And I'm going to do just a really quick, like you're sitting at your desk, let's just move just a little bit because I can't help myself. I just can't help myself. So this is a subscriber only opportunity. And again, look for the bonus episode this Friday and you can learn more about Graced Health Plus. Now, the last thing I promised is I wanted to share with you some ideas on how to create your own community, because it may be that you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, Amy, or I'm fine just working out at home. And if that's the case, I get that. Like, that's fine. So let's just dig into this one really quickly. So how to create your own community. Number one, even though I get it if you want to work out at home, but consider joining a fitness facility if that is your jam, if that is something that you feel would bring energy to you. And if not, I totally get that. So this is what I would ask you is if you were a member of a gym or a fitness facility before COVID and you haven't gone back, I think it's worth asking why you haven't joined back. That may be because of your life stage. It might be due to your schedule or your responsibilities. Maybe it's just not exciting to you anymore and you're like, I'm just not really interested in doing that. That's fine. Maybe it's time to find something different, but I think it's worth just saying, why am I not doing this anymore? And there's no right or wrong answer, but I think taking just a hot second to explore why we did it and why we're not, there might be a bridge that we need to gap, or it may be that our road has taken us somewhere else. I have actually thought about maybe going back to a gym, doing something different, not in a leading capacity, but in a joining, because I'll be really honest, I just kind of feel a little stale in my own workouts. So this is something I am exploring, but I have to admit that I like the flexibility of doing what I want to do and when I want to do it. So I am looking to some other mentors I know and seeing what they're doing and seeing what they suggest. And so anyway, that's just kind of up in the air for me, but I'll just tell you that that's what I'm doing right now. I'm thinking about it. I don't know what I would do. We'll just leave that. Okay, here's another idea. Invite others to work out with you. So you can do things like meet at a park. You can meet at a track and either walk the track or do some sprints. I have a friend who used to just work out with her girlfriends in the driveway. If you do that, try and do things where you're not jumping really hard on your joints, land softly, all of that kind of stuff. Take care of yourself. But that's a really great thing to do. You can even just work out in your garage if that's part of what you want to do. It's funny. My campus pastor has just a full on gym setup in his garage. It's really impressive. And he used to invite neighbors to work out with him and his wife before they moved to this campus. I don't know what he's doing right now, but that's just a really great way to fellowship and to meet other people and serve other people if you've got equipment. So create your own little community by inviting others to work out with you. Another thing you can do is schedule walk and talks, just like I do, whether this is in person or on the phone. It's funny. I was in meeting. I just was in my doctor's office for my annual visit, just not even my well woman, but just my regular, get the blood drawn. And I happened to have scheduled, and this is rare for me, but I had 2 walk and talks that day. And I came in and anyway, we were talking and I said something to the effect of, I was like, well, I've walked 9 miles today. And she was like, what? I said, well, that's not really normal, but I had scheduled these things because I really wanted to catch up with these particular friends. And I mentioned that I call it a walk and talk. She was like, I've never thought about doing that before. And I was like, well, this is a great way to take care of yourself and your emotional well-being and your connectedness. So, do a walk and talk. It's super simple, super easy. And then of course, the final thing I invite you to is to join the Graced Health Plus, where you can join with the live Zoom calls and you will get more. I promise, you are going to get more with those subscriptions. So tune in Friday to learn more about that. And I do hope you do it. I have been thinking about and praying about how to foster community in a way that is sustainable for me. I have to admit, I'm not great about it on the Facebook group. I try, and it's not like I'm hot or I'm not. I'm hot and cold with that. if you're in there, But this is the one thing that's makes me really excited about the Graced Health Plus. And yes, we're going to have some other things, but the thought of being able to get more virtually face-to-face with you, you, that is so exciting to me because again, you put the stuff out and it's I don't know what's landing. I don't know if this is working for you or not. I mean, I can tell what's interested in you by those surveys and I can tell what you're interested in by the downloads, but I I want to hear more from you and I want to connect more with you because I like you and I'm grateful that you listen. And I just think that this is a good opportunity to take this to that next step. Now, if you have listened before, you know that I like to ask my guests one simple thing they want the listeners to remember. So I'm going to offer you one simple thing, and that is figure out how you can foster your own community, whether it is through joining something or creating something or honing in on smaller groups to walk and talk or maybe work out together, but find your community. We were not meant to do life alone, and it is so much better when we can experience life, process life, live life with each other. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.